Morning. This is the Planning Committee meeting for Macclesfield Town Council on the Friday, the 18th of December 2020 at 10 AM. Due to the coronavirus restrictions, this meeting will be held remotely and broadcast on youtube.com and can be viewed on the Macclesfield Town Council youtube.com channel. First, do we have any apologies for absence?
Councillor Roberts.
Councillor Roberts, noted. And any declarations of interest? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. I wish to declare an interest in planning applications 20/5296M and 20/5505M. They are both applications by AstraZeneca. I have a non-pecuniary interest as I was employed by AstraZeneca and I am now in receipt of a pension.
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations of interest? So at this point, I'm going to adjourn the meeting because we have a public speaker today, and we have Dr. Ruth Thompson, who would like to speak to us about the green spaces. Now, you're going to have 3 minutes, Ruth, to speak to us, and we'll hold up a sign about 1 minute from the end to give you a warning. Thank you very much.
Fine. So I don't think I'll need the full 3 minutes, but thank you for having me anyway. As you know, I'm learning an awful lot about planning in relation to the King's School application, but I've come across some interesting stuff about open spaces. So I've started reading, I've joined this Open Space Society, which is actually a precursor to the National Trust. So I've been learning lots of interesting things. Something I think that you really need to be aware of is that there is quite a lot of spaces in Macclesfield that are listed under the SADPD as protected open space. And in particular, the King's cricket pitches, but there are other ones as well that are allegedly protected open space. The difficulty is that the protected open space doesn't actually afford these spaces much protection. It only comes under the national policy framework in number 97, which means that the tilted benefits of residential building on these sites is still possible. There is, however, a designation called local green space, and it can be requested, or spaces can be designated as local green spaces either during a neighbourhood plan implementation or during review of the local plan. So this would be a prime time during the SADPD revisions and the local plan review to consider whether these spaces in Macclesfield actually need a higher designation. And a local green space is given a much higher protection, almost is on a par with greenbelt land, so it's really, really protected, and the tilted balance is away from residential building and towards protection of the space. There are a few criteria. So a local green space needs to be reasonably close to the community it serves. It must be demonstrably special to the local community, and that could be either around beauty, historic significance, recreational value, tranquility, or richness of wildlife. And it also has to be local in character, so not an extensive tract of land. And I can think of quite a lot of little spaces in Macclesfield town that would probably meet those criteria, and it currently only have protected open space designation in the SADPD. So what I'm asking, there's two questions. I'm assuming that the consideration of a neighbourhood plan is not going to happen, but I'll leave that up to you to decide. I know it's been discussed quite extensively. Just to let you know from this magazine, when Knutsford did their neighbourhood plan, they managed to designate 41 different spaces as local green space. So actually they managed an awful lot of different spaces that they have now protected to a much higher level. So if there isn't going to be a neighbourhood plan, what I'd like is support from the town planning Macclesfield Town Planning to support me in requesting local green space designation for the cricket pitch, but also to consider all those other spaces in Macclesfield. And you may want to work out how you input or request that designation, which would give these spaces a much higher level of protection. So thank you very much. Is there any questions?
Do you have any questions for Ruth? Councillor Wilson.
Chair, thank you. I don't have any questions for Ruth, because I think she's made it very clear, but I do want to make a response to what Ruth has said. Is that so? Shall I do that now, or shall I see?
Yes, please. Yeah, if you do that.
Yeah, okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much indeed, Ruth, for coming along to speak to us this morning about these issues. I wanted to respond on behalf of the committee to the points that you're making. Prior to doing that, I also want to report back that the Strategic Planning Board last week did decide to defer once again the King's School planning application for the area which is nearest to the town centre, where the cricket pitch under discussion now is located. In my experience in planning, I can't recall any occasion when an application has been deferred twice in this way, and I hope very much, this planning committee hopes very much, that the developers now and the Cheshire East officers will take notice of the reasons for deferral, and we won't be put in a situation again where a deferral has been, the points from a deferral haven't been taken on board. So I think that is something that the community will be thankful for, that the planning committee has taken the steps it has to make sure that planning is appropriate and for the area in which it's in, and all the issues that were raised the first time in the deferral and raised again in the deferral will be taken on board. Secondly, in respect to the point on local green spaces, I think this is something that the planning committee is going to be supporting, and there's a number of ways of doing this, as you've outlined in your presentation to us this morning. We are not pursuing a neighbourhood plan because the Macclesfield itself has so much planning policy that when we came to look for extensive considerations into this, there was very little that we could actually plan on as a town council planning committee. What we are doing is we're taking a different approach because of the uniqueness of Macclesfield. And first of all, we are undertaking a conservation area review for Macclesfield, and that work is well advanced. We are currently, it'll be reported later on our agenda, so I don't want to sort of bring things forward, but we will be discussing that later. We're making good progress and currently have 9 tenders we're considering. And the second thing, in lieu of a neighbourhood plan, we are undertaking a character assessment of Macclesfield. This will inform planning policy in Macclesfield in a much better way than a neighbourhood plan would do. And in that character assessment, we have got open space in that character assessment, so that does give us the chance to address those issues. And finally, in terms of the local green space, I certainly feel very determined that we can protect those local green spaces, and certainly the King's School one needs protection. We will be discussing the SADPD later on our agenda, and we'll be discussing that under policy REC1. And so we'll be taking steps to raise the King's School playing field specifically under the SADPD, and we'll be looking at the public open spaces as part of our deliberations for the character assessment review, which we have a meeting early in the new year. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ruth.
Okay, do we have any other questions for Ruth? No? Well, thank you very much for your presentation this morning, and goodbye. Yeah, thank you. Now we're moving on to the minutes of the planning committee held on the 27th of November. To consider those draft minutes as a true record of the meeting. Do you have Councillor Jackson?
I'll move those as a true record, Chairman.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Edwards. All those in favour? And that's all. Thank you. Do we have any matters arising from those minutes? No, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the planning applications. The first application is 20/5025M and this is the replacement of existing grass pitches with the new artificial pitch and the upgrading of existing floodlights at the Moss Rose. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This planning application has already been determined and was agreed yesterday. This is one of those examples where a planning application has been dealt with very swiftly, for which we are very grateful. This is a very important project for the town and also for Macclesfield South Ward, where I am one of the councillors. I'm very pleased to see this application has been approved. Certainly I'm confident this planning committee would be supporting the application should we be able to consider it within the time available. But I think it's very important that the club the new owners of the club are making these improvements to the ground. We've seen already that they are very willing to engage with the community, and hope very much to be able to have representatives of the club to attend our Moss Rose partnership meeting early in the new year. Very pleased to see that women's football is coming through and there'll be a home for women's football in Macclesfield. And I would like to speak from my point of view. I feel the Town Council Planning Committee would have supported this application, and I would like us to send in our support for a community club with our good wishes for the future and our welcoming the community involvement already taking place. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to second that. We've had a couple of visits to full council from members at the football club, and they're fully aware of how much the town council support what the football club is doing. And I'm just sorry that we didn't get the opportunity to formally give our opinion on this and give our support on this application. So I'm very pleased to see all that they're doing up at the ground, and yeah, so that's my view on that. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'm very pleased to see that it's going through, and it's going through so swiftly and so enthusiastically. So we don't have to vote really on on that, really, do we? Because it's already gone through. Second application.
Sorry to interrupt you, but can I please ask though, that I think it would be helpful if we could vote, because I would like us to send in the comments as moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Jackson. We have had a very good working relationship with the club all through the time of the council, and I would like us to actually send in those supportive comments, even though it closed on Monday. So could we perhaps just vote on sending them in just to show solidarity, perhaps?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think that's a great idea. So all those in favour? That's all. Thank you. Second application is application 205406M, and this is a change of use of a residential dwelling to a residential children's home on Stafford Walk. Anybody would like to speak on this? No, so we have no objections. Application 205253. This is a change of use of a residential care home to a school on Chelford Road. Anybody would like to speak to this? Well, I'd just like to say that I think it's reading the Ofsted reports from the school. It's been a really welcome development to support vulnerable pupils, and I'm very pleased to see that that application is on. So move on to the next one. Application 205062M, and this is the change of use from a ground floor shop unit to first floor office area into 2 3-bedroom dwellings. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have some areas of concern with this application, which is to change the use of the ground floor and first floor to 2 3-bedroom dwellings. So they're not the traditional 2 up, 2 down, but 3 up and 2 down. And just looking at the plans, I'm a little concerned that one of the residential units has no outdoor amenity space. It doesn't have access to the rear shared yard. That's a concern. The parking that's provided is all down one side of the buildings and is configured in such a way that if a car that's at the far end of the parking area wishes to get out, the other 3 cars all have to move to enable that movement. Now, while this property was used as an electrical factors, that wasn't an issue because they were just the same business with their vehicles and they could maneuver them. But when it's 2 separate residential properties, that could cause a difficulty. And I think all will happen is that at least a couple of the cars will end up on the street. And we know Brown Street has real difficulty with parking, on street parking. So that's an issue. Another thing is that there is no mention of any cycle storage anywhere. There's nothing identified in the shared yard for cycle storage. And also, as we always do request with the new property, our recommendation is that there should be low emission boilers included and EV charging points. So it's not perfect by any means, this application, but I don't feel strongly enough to object, but I do have those concerns. So I would say no objection, but I would wish those concerns to be taken on board, and particularly with our views on climate change and supporting reduction in carbon emissions, then there should be low emission boilers and the EV charging points.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. And do we need to vote on those comments? So do we just take those on board?
Are you proposing that, Councillor Jackson, then?
Yes, no objection, but with the concerns expressed.
Okay.
Yeah,
So if we have a
Councillor Wilson.
then, if there is one.
Well, yes, I second the proposal made by Councillor Jackson. I think they're very good points, and I feel very strongly that where we have got new build, we do need to be emphasising those points for new properties that are environmentally friendly, in line with our decision on climate change.
Okay, super. So that's been proposed. All those in favour? Well, that's us all. Thank you. Next application is 204602, and this is a part 2-storey and single-storey extension in Prestwick Close. Do you have any comments on that? No, so no objections. Next one is 205175M. This is a temporary change of use from a bar to a Class FB licence on Mill Street. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, Central Ward, this is my area, and this is the Revolution Bar, which is a locally listed part of the Majestic Cinema, which is locally listed, and it's obviously for a change of use from a bar to this Class F2, which is for a shelter, a homeless shelter. The background to it is that normally the local church community would provide services for the homeless certainly throughout the winter, and this would be in the local church halls. But of course, due to COVID, there is a need for a larger facility for the winter to enable the social distancing. It is only temporary, would be from when permission is given till the end of March. Now, there was on the application, it did say that they would not be encouraging users to stay overnight. But then there is a contribution from someone in the community who obviously I believe definitely is part of the church community and actually is very much aware of this application and what it's intended for. And they are saying that it will be open from 10 in the evening till 8 in the morning. So that is obviously for homeless people to be able to have shelter overnight. And they are saying that they would be providing a maximum of 4 beds. It would be open weekends and weekdays when there is severe weather predicted. So that is the use of this building, and it's temporary through the winter. I fully support it. I think it's a really great place to have, you know, it's in the town centre, and a good use of this building. So I fully support it.
Okay, do you have any other comments on it? No? Councillor Edwards?
No, beg your pardon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll, are you proposing that we support rather than just?
Yes,
So
yes, I'd like to support.
Well, I will second that. And those in favour? Councillor Edwards? Yes, is in favour. Thank you. Next proposal is 2052 28M, and this is a 2-storey, single-storey front, side and rear extension on Amberley Road. Do you have any comments on that? No, so no objections. Next we have application 2049 36M, and this is a proposed double-storey side extension on Ryebank Way. No objections to that. Next application is 2052 60M, a single-storey front extension on Allswater. No objections there. And next we have 2052 85, and this is a rear extension with a parapet flat roof, and this is on Rance Park Road. No comments on that one, so no objections. Next, application 2052 40M, a rear single-storey extension in Thirlmere. No objections to that. 2053 19M, single side storey rear extension in Grangelands. No objections. 2053 45M, single storey front and rear extensions on Worley Road. No objections there. 2053 76M, this is a single storey rear extension on Penrith Avenue. No objections. 2052 96M, this is a single storey extension at AstraZeneca building. So, oh, Councillor Jackson.
Yes, just a comment, just to see that there is, we are having quite a number of applications from AstraZeneca over the last few weeks and months. I know, because I have to keep declaring my interest. But I do want to say that, you know, we're all, I think, you know, in Macclesfield, we're all very supportive of the work that AstraZeneca does. It helps to support our community. I'm thinking of all the people who work there, you know, have their wages from there and their pensions. It's you know, it's a great business that does support the local community, and they're doing great work, and just very pleased to see that. I mean, you know, they're just to say that their headquarters moved from Alderley Edge, and I know at that point people were quite concerned. They moved to Oxford, and of course Oxford is famous now with its AstraZeneca there with the vaccine, and we were concerned of the impact on Macclesfield, but the site in Macclesfield is going from strength to strength, as these continuing applications show. So I just wanted to express my support of the company and what they do for the town. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Admin and Governance Manager.
Sorry, Chair. Councillor Jackson, did you want that minuting, or was that just an observation for the meeting?
Yes, would you minute it? I think that would be
Under
good.
your name?
Well, yes, please. I if that's all right, that I expressed on behalf of the council.
Yeah. Well, I've certainly appreciated a lot of the work that you've done when I was head of science and supporting the local schools as well. So, yeah, very good. Next application is 20.
Oh, sorry, can I just be clear? There's no objections then?
No objections.
Oh no,
Thank you.
There is no objections, and I think it's quite right that the committee puts itself behind what Councillor Jackson has just said. I think Councillor Jackson's expressed it very, very well, but I think we all support the point that's been made.
oh, yeah.
And these challenging times, whenever I hear the word AstraZeneca, I keep thinking I want that vaccine, and that's the one I want.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to application 205395M. Again, this is a two-storey rear extension on Titherington Lane. Councillor Wilson.
It's just a comment on this application rather than any statement either way, Chair. There is an objection from a neighbour who is concerned about their property being overlooked by an extension which is looked like it's going through into the rear garden towards the back of another property on the row of properties behind. There's very clear policy on this with Macclesfield Borough Council retained policy DC 38. That habitable room to habitable room, there should be a 21 to 25 metre distance if it's a two-storey building, or a 28 to 32 metre distance if it's a three-storey building. This building, it does appear to be 3 stories, but the top story doesn't seem to have a window that looks out towards this property. So my comment basically would be to ask that to state that we want the planning officer to look into the concerns about overlooking and apply the policies as appropriate. It's not clear from the diagrams and the paperwork we've got how close it is, but it is clear that there's a neighbour with a significant objection to being overlooked in their property. And what will resolve this is the planning policy that has a specific distance. Has to be. I would like us to note that we want the planning officer to make sure that there is no breach of that planning policy. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Jackson.
I'll second that action.
Okay, and all those in favour? That's all. Thank you. Next application 205295M. This is the demolition of an existing single-storey scout hut with a view to building a new scout hut, isn't it, with storage? And comment on that, Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, this again is in Central Ward. I know it well. I think many people are aware of the scout hut. It's acted as a polling station over many years, so it's well known in the community. And for anyone who does know it, they'll be aware that it's very closely surrounded by residential properties. And I fully support this application. It could give them much better for the Scouts, a much better facility, and I think it's great for that. But I have one or two things comments I would like to make. One, I think as the environmental health officer has said, there should be hours of construction. They're really important because of its proximity to local residents, and also that they should have a site-specific dust management plan, because knowing the construction of this scout hut, I think there will be quite a lot of dust and debris flying around. So just to protect the quality of the air, and also to have again low emission boiler and electric charging point. So in this new build, even though it's not a residential building, but it will be used by many people, so we definitely need a charging point there. So yes, thank you.
I'm quite happy to second that proposal. All those in favour? That's a couple. All. Now the next application, we have three applications, all connected to the same property on 81 Mill Street, which I was just walking by yesterday actually to have a look as I was walking down into the town centre. So the first one is for refurbishment of the existing shop front, and including the provision for wheelchair access. There is a small curb entrance into the shop. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, as you stated, this first application is one of three, all applying to this property at 81 Mill Street. To refurbish the shop front and make some of the, well, very minor changes, but mainly it's to gain access, wheelchair access, to enable people with mobility issues to access the building. Environmental health officer is fine with this, and the same applies obviously to all these applications in a way, although this refurbishment is the main one for the environmental health. And within that, they state they would recommend hours of construction. So I fully support that. And I would just say that we are supporting subject to conservation officer support. Obviously, I will maybe say a little bit more on that when we come to the next application.
I'm happy to second that.
Yeah.
All those in favour? Yeah. So move on to the second part of this application. This is listed building consent for refurbishment of the shop front. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. So again, I have no objection to this application. It is part of a grade 2 listed row of shops. So it is listed, and therefore, you know, why it's required to have the listed building consent. And again, I would say no objection, subject to conservation officer report on it. Just a comment on the the design of the frontage, which I think, I mean, personally, I think it is a very, very pleasant design, very good design. And they have given a nod to heritage by the use of the colours of the paint, etc. So they, you know, they have taken that on board. They're not just wanting to, you know, just paint it in whatever colour they wish. They have looked at how they can give it a pleasant and in keeping design. So yes, I support this. Thank you.
You've covered the next application as well there, Councillor Jackson. Yes. So certainly for 205378M,
Excuse me, Chair. Sorry, am I recording support or no objections? I just need to be clear on that.
I think we record support for
Support.
Yeah, support.
5378M, yeah. We move on to the final part, which is 205379M, and this is for the consent for the hand-painted shop logo, which Councillor Jackson, I think, has just referred to. But
thank you.
back to you.
Again, you know, it's great to see this. We've had a few advertisement applications for these all singing, all dancing, digital flashing types of advertisements, which are not getting the support, you know, in the town. They have, you know, other ones have been refused, and this is in keeping, hand painted, in keeping with the street scene in Mill Street, and I fully support this. The person who's taking this property on has obviously taken on board how to produce a sympathetic refurbishment of the shop, and I applaud them really, and I wish them well in the town.
Well, again, I'm quite happy to support your your support of that application. So again, all those in favour of support? Yeah, so that's again supporting that application. Next we have application 205435M, and this is a change of use from offices to a single dwelling. It's been several switches previously of this property on Park Street, Macclesfield. So do you have any comments on that, Councillor Jackson?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, again, this is on Park Street. It's we've got two applications. Again, we're following up with the listed building concern. It is a grade 2 listed building in the High Street Conservation Area. Looking at it, there are no external or internal alterations being required. Obviously, it was originally a residential property, had a change of use to a business, to office, but nothing was done to alter it in any way, and now it's just being reverted back to residential. And I believe that the Conservation Officer has expressed his support of it. He has no concerns, so I have no objection to this one.
Yeah. So no objections. If we move on to the second part of the application for the same property, this is listed building consent. So anybody would like to speak on that? Councillor Jackson?
Yes, Chairman, I'll just say again, no objection. I mean, one of the comments within the report on both the applications for this property was that the only thing that was probably different is the fact that there is a boundary wall which wasn't the original, originally part of this property, as part of the property. And so now with the listed building consent, that will cover the boundary wall, and the Conservation Officer is happy with that. So that is but there are no changes to the building itself, and this boundary wall is an addition, but the Conservation Officer is happy to include that.
Okay. Yeah. So again, no objections to that one. Next application, 205484M. This is for retrospective planning of a gazebo. This is being built as we speak. Do we have any comments on this one? No, so we're quite happy to let that continue to go ahead. Next, we have 205472M, which is side and rear extensions on Titherington Drive. No objections. Proposed sorry, next one is 205443M, proposed double-storey side, and there's a first floor rear extension on Carnoustie Drive. No objections. Next, 205525M. This is on Rotherhead Drive. It's a conversion of a conservatory to an orangery. No objections there. And we're now moving on to the supplementary agenda. Well, there are 4 more applications. The first is, excuse me, is 205505M, which is a single-storey screening cabins, again at the AstraZeneca site. So we have no objections there. 205433M, which is the change of use to a restaurant and bar. This is the former Cheshire Building Society. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, this is on Central Ward. We've been aware of this possibly coming forward for quite a while, the proposal for a restaurant and bar in the former Cheshire Building Society building. I have no objection to this change of use. All I would say is that it would be subject to the Conservation Area Officer comment and also environmental health comments. They aren't at present on the website. This is a locally listed building, so it is an important heritage building in the centre of town. But I have no objection subject to those officers being happy with it and having no issues with it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Edwards.
I just wish to say that I was chairman of the licensing committee, which approved the license for this. So
Councillor, we haven't reached that application yet. This is just the change of use.
Oh, I do beg your pardon. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. So
I'll come in.
Yeah. So we'll say there's no objections. If we move on to 205434M, which is the advertisement consent for the signs outside the building. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I noted this, the advertisement consent for the restaurant that will be coming in to the building, for the menu display and the fascia signs. I think it's always difficult on a beautiful heritage building to produce a sign that will be in keeping with it. I think it is difficult, but I'm willing to say that I have no objection to the signs that are proposed. Might not be to everyone's taste, but I don't have an objection. I think we have to go with it really for the restaurant to come through and help to reinvigorate the town and encourage more visitors to the town. So thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Edwards, did you want to speak on this?
Well, I thought I'd be speaking to the last one, but Councillor Jackson pointed out that I was speaking in the wrong place. I just want to say that we supported the license for this lovely, lovely building 9 months ago, something like that. And I'm very much in favour of it being used again. And although it's not within our powers, it would be wonderful if it was available and so on when Castle Street has some redevelopment, and I'm very, very much in favour of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So no objections to the signage. And finally, this is a proposed, this is 2054 96M. It's a proposed single-storey extension at Home Farm, 19 Home Farm. No objections there. So we're going to move on now to appeals, and towards the end of your pack you'll see these two appeals, one which we've seen before, and the first one is 20/2265M to Brook Street. Would anyone like to speak on this? Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, generally with appeals, we review the reasons for our objections, and if we find those objections still stand, we don't make any comment. I find with this particular application that our objections would still stand. There are objections such as noise impact assessment, dust management plan, low emission boilers, sprinklers being included in the design, all things we've talked about this morning as being required when there is a new build. So I move that we make no further comment.
Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'll second that. Yes, in my opinion, there have been no changes to anything. So there is no reason to alter our view on it.
Yeah, well, I agree. I've got all of the objections listed and haven't heard of any changes. So
yes,
so
the inspector will have view of those. So there is no requirement for us to change anything, and we just state that our view stands.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Yes, our view remains as it was. Next application to review is 86 Mill Street, is to consider a response to that appeal application, which is for the installation of the digital advertisement sign. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, yes, it's sort of ditto on this, really. You know, we have no reason to change our view on it. I have noted that there have been other applications for digital advertisements which have also been refused. We're being consistent. Cheshire East is being consistent on this, and I think we just maintain that same response and the same view on it.
Yeah, we originally said it was overbearing and distracting to motorists and a concern for highway safety, so nothing's changed as far as that's concerned. So we our position remains the same. Okay. I'm moving on to item 7 on the agenda now, which is for the site allocations and development policies document for the SADPD consultation, to consider the response to the Cheshire East Council consultation. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Chair. We are now being consulted again on the site allocations and development policies document. This is the second time there's been a consultation on this document, and there has been some amendments. We did discuss this issue back in September 2019, and we sent in as a committee a detailed amount of comments on the original consultation. Having gone through this revised document, none of those actual amendments have been made. And just to quickly go through, this information has been in our document pack, Chair, so I won't actually go through in a huge amount of detail, but I think for those people who are watching our meeting who may not have the paperwork in front of them, I think it's just important to highlight the areas in which we did make comments last time, because what I'm going to propose is that we resubmit comments because they haven't been taken on board. But those comments relate to strategic green gaps, local green gaps, design principles in terms of lifelong adaptations to homes. We wanted easy access we talked this morning about an application for disabled access to a building, and we talked about that being part of the SADPD. We talked about advertisements. Again, we've discussed this now, advertisements and our concerns about those. We talked about ecological implementation, landscaping, the environment in respect of trees and hedgerows, ancient woodlands, and we talked about climate change mitigation and adaptation, air quality. We talked about the subdivision of dwellings, which of course also relates to homes of multiple occupancy. Amenities, we've talked about residential standards and housing density. Again, we've spoken this morning about that in terms of privacy and overlooking. And cycleways, bridleways, footpaths and highway safety. So that's a quick whistle-stop tour through, Chair, our quite detailed contribution last time. And the first thing I would like to suggest is that we resubmit our comments so those can be taken on board. I have two other comments and proposals. Should I continue, or do you want me to stop there and we'll take that as a... Should I do it all at...
Please continue.
So carry on and do it all at once, and then we can...
Yeah, please continue.
Okay, so the second point I wanted to raise relates to the new document, and these relate to the areas concerning the retail and town centre, the retailing and town centre part of the policy. On page 111, policy RET 5.4, there's a reference there about where space allows having outdoor external dining and seating. I want to take the opportunity just to highlight a couple of points in the town centre section of this document which haven't been amended, but they are very relevant to our current situation. Councillor Jackson and I both sit on the Macclesfield Town Centre Recovery Working Group, and one of the things that has come through as part of our consultations with residents and businesses in Macclesfield has been the need for us to look at some outdoor seating and dining arrangements, specifically now with the COVID crisis. You know, the meeting outdoors is one thing that small numbers of people are able to do now. This is something that we are continuing to discuss with stakeholders in Macclesfield, but it's welcome to see and comment that's in the document. There's also a policy RET 8, which is on page 115 of the document. This policy relates to residential accommodation in the town centre. Again, this section hasn't been changed, but I want to use the opportunity to flag up as part of our strategy, the Macclesfield Town Council's strategy for the next for the civic term. We do very much welcome accommodation in the centre of Macclesfield. People living in the town centres has demonstrated in other areas how it does bring life to the town centre for a 24/7 economy. And we have this morning considered and supported a number of applications where there's a change of use from offices to residential in the town centre, and so that's clearly something that we need to continue to encourage. So that's an observation on something that's already in the document, and I'm not proposing a change on that. But the final thing I am proposing that we make a comment on, Chair, is in respect of the policy REC1 on page 140 of the SADPD document, and this relates to green open space protection. I did briefly refer to this in responding to the comments from our public speaker Ruth Thompson this morning, but I'd like to move in respect of policy REC1 that in our contribution we propose that the King's School cricket pitch is included as a green open space protection as part of the SADPD, because this is, as we heard from our speaker this morning, there are two ways to influence local green spaces. One is when the local plan is up for review, and this is what this is, the SADPD is an amendment to the local plan. It's the review of the local plan. I do have further comments to make about the National Planning Policy Framework, about local green spaces, but I'll make those, Chair, under our item on our character assessment, because I think they sit. The second way of dealing with this in tandem with making an amendment to the SADPD is to consider it as part of the character assessment. So I'll raise that part then, but I do want us under the SADPD response to propose an amendment that King's School playing field is a green open, is a protected green open space. So there's two proposals, Chair. The first one is straightforward. It is to resubmit the comments that we've made already. Actually, there's three proposals, sorry. The second one is to comment positively on the town centre design issues I've mentioned. And the third one is to propose the inclusion of the King's School cricket in policy REC1. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is anybody else would like to speak on this? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to second those proposals. Councillor Wilson beat me to policy RET 5.4, which I'd got noted here to highlight. I think the policy RET 5, the whole of that policy is really a very good policy for our town centre. But point 4 particularly, as we are looking to encourage al fresco hospitality, outdoor events, we will need to do that over the next few months. And so it's useful to have this policy here for us to be able to refer to. Also, the RET 9 on page 116, which is environmental improvements, public realm and design in town centres, particularly point 3, which is ease of movement, ensuring the town centre is easy to get to and move around. Because one of the things that we do need to be aware of is with our pedestrianised scheme we have for the town centre, there are some or can be some issues with that, and I think it is definitely something that we do need to revisit at some point as part of our recovery plan for the town. It does sit well with the al fresco use of outdoor space. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Okay, so it's a question really to the admin and governance manager. Can we take these three proposals together, or should we take them separately?
Shall we take them separately so we're clear on what you're raising your hands on?
Okay, yeah. So could we go back to Councillor Wilson for the first proposal?
Yes, Chair, I move that we resubmit all our original comments as detailed in the letter in our agenda pack dated the 30th of September 2019.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy to second that. All those in favour? That's us all. And proposal number 2, Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, the second proposal was in respect of the town centre policies RET 5.4 and 8, and I'll add in 9, which Councillor Jackson's just mentioned. Hopefully she'll second the proposal, but we welcome those proposals and comment positively in the light of our town centre recovery plan.
Thank you.
There's no amendment, it's just to welcome those proposals.
Councillor Jackson?
I'll second that. Thank you.
All those in favour? Yeah, that's all. And the third proposal, Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, the third proposal, Chair, thank you, is to add the King's School cricket pitch as a protected open space to policy REC1.
I'm happy to second that proposal. All those in favour? Again, that's all. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 8. and that is the houses in multiple occupation supplementary planning document consultation. Do you have any speakers on this? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I think the Town Council and particularly the Planning Committee have a great interest in the HMOs. We're finding more and more properties are coming to us with applications to convert to HMOs, and we really do need to ensure that there is adequate control over these, and also awareness of where the HMOs are in our town. I think it is really important. As we can see within the report, there is an attempt, shall I say, to try and regularise that, and to ensure that we don't get too many HMOs in a particular area, in a particular street. But the first thing I'd just like to talk about is that within the report, at item 6 on page 19, that talks about the licensing and management of HMOs. And the Cheshire East Council have a requirement that HMOs of 5 or more people are required to have a license, and certainly we agree with that. But there is a proliferation of HMOs with a smaller number than that, and of course they just slip beneath the radar, and we just don't know where they are. And so our council would like to suggest a comment on it and a change, or should I say an addition to this item, which is that where there are more than 2 unrelated people and up to 5, so where there are more than 2 unrelated people and up to 5 living in an HMO, then this property should be registered with the local authority. It's not that they require at present not to require a license, but to a minimum be registered so that the local authority is aware of the property. So that's my proposal for our comment to Cheshire East. With regarding the control of HMOs within areas and within streets, I would be interested to see other councillors' comments on that point.
Yeah, so we're avoiding the need to register if 2 people are house sharing by saying more than 2. So specifying really between 3 and 5, they were asking for those to be registered.
Well, you can have 3 people house sharing. You know, you could do. So the council have recommended that we put forward that the proposal that I have suggested, which is 2 up to between 2 and 5 unrelated people in a property should register with the local council. They're not requiring a license, they're not to be licensed, but just to register with the council, so council is aware of the numbers of shared properties.
Okay. Would anyone else like to speak on that proposal? No. Councillor Wilson.
Well, I'm happy to second Councillor Jackson's proposal. We did discuss this issue on our full council meeting in September, and one of our members, Councillor Harewood, did raise this issue as a matter of concern. It is a difficult one because we're seeing significant numbers of applications for homes for developments coming forward where, for example, every bedroom has a bathroom, and there is concern that a lot of these new builds are going to be used as HMOs in due course, rather than for family accommodation. So it's very difficult to license on these issues, but I think what the council, our Macclesfield Town Council full council has discussed and Councillor Jackson has proposed is that we have a halfway house to ensure that people in a situation where there's more than 2 unrelated tenants, that's more than 2 unrelated tenants, and up to a maximum of 5 living together should be registered as living in a HMO. And I think that's something that full council discussed to try to tackle this issue. And this is very difficult, Chair. I completely agree with you, because when those people house sharing become a home of multiple occupation. So I think this is something that we agreed at full council in the view of the forthcoming Cheshire East Council consultations on homes of multiple occupation. It was agreed to make appropriate comments during these consultations, and I think that's what we are doing in keeping with the full council decision in September.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to second Councillor Jackson's proposal.
Yeah, just to be absolutely clear, so for clarification, it's more than 2, not 2 or more, but more than 2.
No, I mean, it's to be helpful, Chair, perhaps I could just read from the minutes of the meeting in September.
Please, yeah, that'd be
it says basically, currently, if an HMO is occupied by 5 or more people, an HMO licence is needed. We seek more transparent regulations such that more than 2 unrelated tenants and up to a maximum of 5 living together with shared facilities are registered as living in an HMO. And I think when council discussed this, we were looking for something that was more than 2 people who were, you know, couple living in the same accommodation. So it's to avoid the sort of house share type thing, which there's lots of people house share, but that's a different thing to a home of multiple occupancy where there's no relationship, either friendship or other relationship between the individuals. And I think it's a very tricky path to walk, but this is why we need the regulation to ensure that homes of multiple occupancy don't start to proliferate. You know, unlicensed. It's basically that knowing what's happening. Registration and licensing are 2 different things, but I think that with this we can tackle the issue that Councillor would raise at our full council meeting in September.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that clarity. So we have a proposal from Councillor Jackson and seconded by Councillor Wilson. So all those in favour? And that's all. Thank you very much. So now moving on to item 9 in the agenda, which is the conservation area review, to note the report and any further updates.
Chairman, I don't know on the HMOs whether anyone has any further comment on the way that Cheshire East are proposing to try and regularise the number of HMOs in any street or in any area. I mean, my comment on that just would be that I do feel that it could be rather unworkable to say that HMOs, there should be, just trying to get to the point, that they are, that Cheshire East are maintaining that there should be a maximum of only a 10% concentration of HMOs within a 50-metre radius, that would apply. I think that might be difficult to enforce, because if HMOs are not being licensed or registered, I mean, this is where our proposal to register HM under 5 persons in a household might help on this, to show where these properties are.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I do feel that at the moment, with the number of HMOs we have in Macclesfield, which I agree is not as many as in Crewe, which is where they have piloted this, and they are looking at this because there is a real issue with HMOs in Crewe. But our proposal may well help with this, looking at the proliferation of HMOs and controlling them in certain streets.
Yeah.
So that's just my comment on that. Do you think we need to just at least raise it before we move on to the next item? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson, could bring in Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you. Supporting Councillor Jackson's comment just there. If you look at the document itself on page 10, bullet point 4.7, it says that under normal circumstances, change of use, as we see change of uses, don't we, come forward, change of use to a home of multiple occupancy. And there's currently no material planning consideration reason to object to that, unless it's on current planning issues like, you know, not enough space or overlooking and things like that. But it says accommodation between 3 and 6 unrelated individuals is permitted development. So it goes ahead as permitted development, but then subsequently in the document it talks about licensing, which we've just made an amendment to. HMOs need only to be licensed for 5 or more residents, and we've made an amendment to that. But if you look at 5.2 on page 12, as Councillor Jackson's just stated, it talks about, in order to maintain and support mixed and balanced communities, a maximum of 10% concentration of HMOs within a 50-metre radius will be applied. So the question is how do you know?
How do you know?
You know, I think that when we send in our amendment that Councillor Jackson, we've all just agreed, I think we should make those comments. The document itself is suggesting a way forward, which doesn't appear to be implementable.
No, I agree.
So
yeah.
I think we need to frame our amendment in those terms, Chair, that relating to those particular issues, that if we're going to have a 10% restriction in a particular area, we need to know what's there already.
We do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. So I take it that all those comments have been noted now. And can we move on to the next?
Can I just be clear?
Yes.
We've had a proposal and a second and a vote all in favour for
Yes.
Councillor Jackson's comment on registering for more than 2 and up to 5. Are you amending that with what you've just discussed? No, just
No.
I'm just proposing that we include some narrative,
right.
Harriet, to go with what we've just decided, because I think the narrative discussion we've just had and the anomaly we've picked up in the document,
Yeah.
we're reading of it, I think our amendment is backed up. Our amendment
Yeah.
makes sense in those terms. Yeah.
It sets the context for it.
It does, yeah. You've got to know what the number of HMOs before you can limit the number of HMOs.
Yeah.
So right, let's just move on now to the item 9 on the agenda, which is the conservation area review. This is to note the report and any further updates. Would anyone like to speak on this? Councillor Wilson?
I just move that we note the report, Chair, and just for those listening and watching, we have had 9 applications or tenders come in. We're going to be looking at those over Christmas, and we're going to be meeting on the 4th of January to discuss our individual separate evaluations of those. 5th of January, sorry. Discuss our separate evaluations of those, and a recommendation will come back to this planning committee on the 15th of January. So I'll move the note of the report.
I'll
Okay,
second.
and all those in favour? Thank you. Moving on now to item 10, which is the town character assessment. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Again, we need to note this report. The Macclesfield Town Council, full council, has now agreed our terms of reference. We do have our first meeting now on the 15th of January next year to discuss the continuing progress with the character assessment. And the only additional point I wanted to raise, Chair, was that a matter was raised by our public speaker earlier about applying under the National Planning Policy Framework for local green space protection for both the King's School cricket pitch and also other green spaces. As I did briefly comment in my response to the public speaker, we do have open spaces as part of our character assessment points to be looked at. And so I think on the 15th of January, at our meeting for that agenda, we could perhaps specifically include local green spaces as part of that discussion, because there are, we heard from our public speaker this morning, there are qualifications to be registered as a local green space in terms of beauty, historical significance and recreational value. The particular location mentioned is very close to the town centre. It's open space. It will be a lovely place to go and have your lunch, or get together with outside, which we are going to be doing for the foreseeable future with the current COVID situation. And so it's basically an action point to pick up from our public speakers' comments this morning, that there's two ways of protecting local green space. One is through the SADPD, and we've done that earlier, and this is the second way. And so therefore I would like us to consider this at our first meeting of our working group on the 15th of January.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. So my internet was playing up there quite a while, so I'm afraid that
sorry,
I did miss a little bit of that, but
well, just to help, Chair, I move that we note the document under agenda item 10, and
yeah.
that at our first meeting of the working group on the 15th of January, we consider issues of local green spaces as part of that agenda, so we can take appropriate action in respect of particularly the King's School cricket pitch, or maybe other open spaces. Just don't want to lose the the point with the action point from our public speaker earlier, Chair. That's what.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I'll be seconding that. Do we need to vote in favour of that?
I think it would be. I think it would be.
I think it would be a good
would
idea. Yeah. So
yeah.
I'm quite happy to second that proposal. Those in favour? That is all. Thank you. Yeah, apologies for that. I was just beginning to break up a little bit there. Moving on to item 11. This is the correspondence. Cheshire Community Action Housing Initiative, to note that correspondence. Okay, thank you. Any members' items? No. Then to go on to the date and time of the next meeting. So we're due to meet again on the 15th of January 2021. Blimey, let's hope it's a better year than 2020. So yeah, we'll be meeting in the new year, when things of course will be looking up, and we'll all be awaiting our lovely vaccine from AstraZeneca.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, to make sure we're all fit and well. Well, thank you very much everybody for your attendance. And that ends today's